come on in because we've got a special video from Married at First Sight. Thanks to all of you dropping down in my comments to let me know that Myrla from, I think she's season 10, was married to Gil, was on Kendra G. Y'all know I'm not one to really go back and keep up with the cast too much after the seasons are over. But I just found it awfully ironic, and I could be wrong, that Myrla happened to be on a Kendra G talking about wanting to find a new husband. Well, that's what it was supposed to be like. It was supposed to be about trying to find a new husband. And at the same time, Gil happened to pop up on Married at First Sight with this teledate, fake teledate with Dom. I think I found it a little bit ironic. First of all, I didn't know Myrla was still single, even though I had predicted that from the season. Because the last time I saw something on the internet, she had a new man. But I guess maybe they broke up because she said on this show she hadn't had sex for 7 months. So tells you how caught up on things I am. Myrla has been single for 7 months. So what I want to talk to about, I know this is going to rile up a lot of people because you know what? In terms of couples who are the most polarized in a lot of the seasons of Married at First Sight, I want to say that Myrla and Gil have got to be in the top 10. Got to be in the top 10 on a couple that has divided the Married at First Sight fans. It can be good because I think it allows for a lot of interesting conversations, but it can also be bad because sometimes we all get in our feelings and we start attacking each other for our different thoughts. I really do want to have a conversation about Myrla going forward. I don't really so much want to talk about Gil, her being with Gil, because I don't think that they were a good fit. I don't think that they were a good match. And as we know, Married at First Sight loves to put polar opposites together. And I think they did that to Gil and Myrla too. She even mentions that on here, that she got a lot of things that she didn't want in Gil. She didn't get the things she asked for. She got the complete opposites. And we know that's what Married at First Sight likes to do. They love to put some things they like to have people have some things in common, but they often put together opposites. Probably because of the drama. Also, maybe because these therapists, these psychoanalysts, these whatever believe that opposites attract, and sometimes opposites can pull each other closer to the middle, and that actually enhances the relationship. It can happen, but sometimes it blows up in our faces. And in the case of Myrla and Gil, it absolutely blew up in our faces. Also want to make something else completely clear before people start dropping down in my comments. Listen, y'all, I don't want to fight with nobody in my comments, but I love to read them. I love to hear the different perspectives. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things I say here today that people would disagree with. And I'm okay with that. I love that. But don't call me no names. Don't call me any names down in my comments, because that's not really why I'm here today. Really what I'm here today is to talk to Myrla, because that's how not Myrla, it's Myrla, in a roundabout way, because she's struggling. She is struggling in the dating world, obviously, and that's why she's on Kendra G. She went to Married at First Sight. Well, before she came on Married at First Sight, she was having a problem in the dating world. That's why she came on Married at First Sight. Then she went on Married at First Sight, and she says she was matched with someone who was the complete opposite of what she wanted. Okay. And then, so now she's divorced, and now she's had several years, maybe 2 years, to be out there on her own again, to make the decisions for herself, to match herself with whomever she wants. And she has struggled. Dating is hard. Dating is tough. We know that. And so now here she is on Kendra G, looking for some more help to possibly meet some people. I don't think Kendra G sought her out to come on the show, because Kendra G in the moment at the beginning didn't even know who she was. So I'm believing that this was Myrla's decision. Myrla's decision was to come on to Kendra G. So like I said, I didn't go looking for Myrla. I did not go looking for her. Y'all Married at First Sight fans, y'all drop down in my comments, let me know. And any other time I probably wouldn't have done this video, because it would have been whatever. But because Gil happened to be on this last season, just last week, and Myrla shows up, I thought it was ironic. And once I started watching the interview, I was a bit disappointed in Myrla. And one of the reasons why I was disappointed in Myrla was because I thought that being post-divorce for 2 years now, if she's coming on a dating show and looking to meet other men, I don't think her conversation should have been about what was wrong with Gil. I don't think so. And she might have said, well, they asked her the question. Everyone's going to ask you the question. So that's the first thing I want to start with. The first thing I want to start with is how you navigate a conversation as a single woman, a single divorced woman after divorce. Myrla's in this situation, and I said it about Dom this last week. How do you navigate a conversation about why you got divorced, what went wrong? Because every man is going to ask you. And last week, for the last episode with Dom, I told her the story she's telling out there in the world, how she was married for 10 days, and she knew right away that the man wasn't for her. And so she said, I'm exiting the show in 10 days. And a lot of people, said, well, she shouldn't have to stay with a person if she knows right away that she didn't want to be with them. Listen, everybody got free will out here. Everyone can do what they want. The only thing I'm talking about is how it looks to the man that's sitting across from you. That's all I want to talk about. I don't even talk. If you don't want to have consideration for your audience, which is the man, then do whatever you want, right? But if you are, I've always talked about this with women. If you are an entity and you are a corporation and you are trying to attract customers, and if you're a woman who's a heterosexual and you're dating men, you have to think about what men think. If you keep going through life and saying, I don't care what men think, I don't care what it looks like, I'm just going to do what I want to do, then you'll stay single. Men are your customers. You can't disregard your customers even if you don't agree with your customers, even if you don't understand why your customer thinks that way, right? It's what customers want. If you own a clothing store, there may be an item that you don't particularly like, a clothing item, you would never wear it, but for some reason it's a hot seller. It's what gets the customers in the door. And when I see Myrla, this is her interview. She's on an interview to find a new man. And in her interview, she talks things about he was broke, he didn't have any savings. I'm telling you, that will go over horribly on a date. Horribly. So if this was a practice interview with Kendra, then when she's sitting across from a man and a man says, well, why didn't your marriage work out? And your answer to him is, well, he was broke and didn't have any money, it's going to go over horribly. Men are always, when they're sitting across from you and they're asking you questions about your exes, your ex-marriages, your ex-men, they're also wanting to see how you handle situations with your exes. Because what men know is at any point in time, they can be in the same situation as that ex. At any point in time. Listen to me, ladies. When Myrla says he was broke and didn't have any money, no one wants to be broke ever in life. But what they will say to themselves, a man will say to himself is, what happens if I go broke? What happens is even if we get together, we start off here, but something goes wrong and I get broke, just like if I get sick or I get anything and I'm up here and I fall from here, how will you treat me? That's what the man is asking you. When a man is asking you how you treated your husband, your previous husband, what he's inferring from that is if it happens to me, how will you treat me? And when she said he had no savings and he was broke, and as we've seen in the blogs, he couldn't come up with half the rent, I had to get rid of him. A man will say, well, dang, if I'm ever on hard times and I'm broke and I lose my money and I can't come up with half the mortgage or whatever else, you'll leave me too. That's what they're thinking. You may not agree with the thinking. You may not agree with their logic, but that's what they're thinking. And therefore, they won't trust you. They won't feel safe with you. They won't want to go out with you. There was another part in the interview where Myrla said, well, they gave me a bald man. And that was the thing I said I didn't want. I didn't want a bald man. Okay, let's go with that, Myrla. Myrla's 36. Myrla's 36 years old. More than likely, she's going to attract a man that's close to her age, 36, maybe on up to 42. Let's just give her a range. Maybe some younger. She's in good shape. But let's just go 36 to 42. What's the average age that a man starts to lose his hair? Around 40. They start to thin out. A lot of men do. A lot of men start to thin out. Look at LeBron James. Look at a lot of men. And what they do is they eventually just shave their head because they've already experienced baldness. So you have Myrla at 36 saying, I don't want a bald man. But she's in the dating range of men where they're already going bald. When a man hears that, he says, wow. Well, what happens when I go bald in another 3 years or 4 years? My daddy is bald. My granddaddy was bald. There's baldness on my mother's side. There's baldness in our family, which means in 4 years, when I start to go bald, Myrla won't be attracted to me. She left a whole marriage because a man was bald. That man will not feel safe with you. Why would a person choose a woman when the woman has said, I'm not attracted to bald men. I can't get attracted to bald men. And if you go bald, I'm going to do you the same way I did Gil. Now, people will say, well, that wouldn't happen because then she would be in love with him. Nobody's taking that chance. No man is taking the chance that you would change your mind on being attracted to a bald man. And the last thing a man wants to be with is a woman who's not attracted to him. Absolutely not. Flip it, ladies. If ladies don't understand that, flip it. Flip it. If a man said, I'm not attracted to a woman over 140 pounds. Let's say you 130 now. Let's say you all nice and trim and slim at 130. And he says, I will not be attracted to a woman over 140. Will you have any anxiety when you get pregnant? Will you have any anxiety if you can't lose that pregnancy weight and get back down to 130? Absolutely, you have. So when Myrla at 36 is telling men, I'm not going to be attracted to a man when he's 40, when he's bald, and she's dating men around the age that they're already experiencing baldness, sun patches, thinning of the hair, receding hairlines. That's not a safe space. It's not a safe space at all. Myrla needs to understand that part of her reason for being still single and why men don't approach her is what she's saying is because of some of the things that she does. She's still focusing on what Gil wasn't for her. We're past that. It's been 2 years. Let's get over that. Let's start focusing on now what you aren't to men. Because if you want to find success in your dating life, you've got to go there. She says she thinks one of the reasons why she's single is because she's an introvert and she doesn't go out and meet men. No, that's not the reason. That's not the reason. Let's dispel that right now, all the people who believe that about Myrla. Yeah, you have to go out, but she's not a hermit. She's not living in a closet. She goes out enough for men to approach her. So if you're not getting any men to approach you, then there's a problem. Maybe it's your countenance. Maybe it's your demeanor. Okay? And that takes us to this other little point of contention. Where is Myrla mean? There are lots of people who say Myrla is mean. She treated her husband horribly. She says she's a kind, decent person, kind and caring. She likes to cater to her man. But that's not what you get when you first meet Myrla. I don't know Myrla. I've never been around her, never hung out with her. She could be the most kind and caring person in the world, Mother Teresa, but it's not what oozes off of her. It's not what I feel from her when I watch her on the TV screen. She doesn't come off as nurturing. She may say she is nurturing in a relationship, but men are not choosing you on what you will be in the relationship. They're choosing you from what you are now. See, here's the problem. People want to discount strangers' opinions. Like me and say, well, you don't know me. You're right, I don't know you. But any man you're about to meet doesn't know you either. First impressions matter because if first impressions are what get you to the point where they get to know the real you. So if you're a nice person on the inside and you're kind and caring, once I get to know you, but if I don't see that on the outside of you, the countenance on you, it doesn't draw me closer to you enough that I even want to get to know that part. So she's got a problem. She may have nice items on her store. Let's go back to my analogy of running a business. She may have a nice store. She may have nice things in that store. But if the outside of the store is dilapidated, and I don't want to call her dilapidated, so let's not use that word. But let's say if the outside of the store doesn't advertise and show what's on the inside of the store, people don't even come into the store. Okay? The outside of the store should reflect the quality that's on the inside of the store. And oftentimes when you see Myrla, she doesn't come across as warm and fuzzy. Even on this interview with Kendra, the things that she was talking about, a lot of it was put downs of Gil. And I don't understand why she's still on a show talking about and putting down an ex-husband. Gil was on a date with Dom. I didn't hear him say anything about Myrla. And the fact of the matter is, Gil not only said adios to Dom because he felt she gave up on the marriage too soon. He didn't even hear the part that one of the reasons why she left was because she didn't feel like he was financially stable. Remember, that was one of the reasons Dom left. So the fact that Dom would try to talk to Gil when she just left a man who she felt wasn't financially stable, that would be triggering to Gil. He just got dumped by a wife or woman because that wife felt he wasn't financially stable enough to be in a marriage. You see the irony of this? We can agree, I can agree with people that Gil wasn't financially prepared for marriage. I can agree with that. And probably any man sitting across from you would agree that if you ran down his finances, he wasn't financially prepared for marriage. We all agree with that. But here's the difference between married at first sight. Married at first sight is you're actually already married. You're not dating him. I think I agree with if you had met Gil on the street and you found out about his financial circumstances, you should have come to the conclusion that he wasn't financially prepared for marriage. But what a man sitting across from you will see, you weren't dating him. You were actually in a marriage with him. So what she's also saying is you didn't give that man any time to get on his feet. How much time did you give him? 3 months, 4 months? He didn't have any money. He was broke. So you left him. That is different there's a difference between leaving a man because he's not on his feet and he's getting back on his feet and deciding not to date him initially. Married at first sight, they were married. She divorced him over it. That is a big difference between saying, I didn't want to date him because he wasn't financially prepared for marriage. Men will be sitting across from Myrla and they will draw a distinction between those two. They will draw a distinction between a woman who says, I don't want to date a man who's not financially prepared. I don't think men will have a problem with that. And the difference between a woman saying, I divorced a man because he was in the transition on getting on his feet. Gil was definitely in transition. Is he a person that was going to be a deadbeat for the rest of his life? I'm not so far to say that. He was on Married at First Sight. Looks like he had a decent place. He was at his home. He had a nice 2-story. Looks like he had a roof over his head. I think on Married at First Sight, he was in transition. He had just started a job. I think his salary was low. He was trying to build up. He was going back to school. He was trying to get education and build his salary back up. So I have no idea where he is now. More than likely, he's making more money than he was before. More than likely, he has been able to make some inroads in his savings, in his salary and such. And I think men will sit across from her and say, you didn't give that man a chance. And a lot of men will be afraid because what they will be saying is, if anything like that happens to me, will you be there for me? And they won't want to take a chance on Myrla. Myrla is high risk. She keeps thinking that she's high maintenance. No, that's not what men see. Men don't see her as high maintenance. They see her as high risk. It is a difference. It is a high risk. Myrla said she would complain no matter what if she wasn't happy with a person. But we saw on the show, Myrla complained about more than Gil. She complained about the hotel they were staying in. Remember, Myrla was very, very picky. Reminded me a lot of Kirsten. Myrla was very, very picky. She wants to rewrite the story and say her pickiness was all about Gil, but it wasn't. Myrla was very picky about a lot of things outside of Gil. Outside of Gil. She says one of the things she's working on is her stubbornness. I'm glad she mentioned that because I think she is stubborn and I think she's a bit closed-minded. And Myrla says that she's sweet and she's kind and she does things nice for people. But I always ask this question. You hear a lot of people out here who often say they're sweet and they're kind and they do a lot for people. But I always ask this question to those people. Do you do those things when they're opposite of what you want? Because when you do nice things for people, but it's also what you want, that's good. That's really good. You're doing a nice thing. But do you do things kind and nice for a person when it's not something you want for yourself? That's where I'm not convinced with Myrla. I'm not convinced that Myrla, that's not her name. I'm not convinced that Myrla is willing to do nice things for people if it goes against what she wants for herself. That's where I think it differentiates. That's what I think is different with her. Because if she was willing to do things for people, even when it goes against what she wants, she wouldn't complain. This was the whole thing with Dom as well. It's really weird that they had Gil talking to Dom, because a lot of the things that are going on with Dom, really, she is a younger version of Myrla in a lot of ways. She's on her way to be a younger version of Myrla. So Myrla, I would say, not only is she stubborn, I'm not sure she's willing to bend for people. That's part of the same thing. She's not willing to bend. And if you're not willing to bend, then you can't be a giver. You see, if you're stubborn and you don't want to bend, then how can you still call yourself a giver? Because a giver bends. That's how they become a giver. They bend. If you're only giving when you don't have to bend, then that's not called giving. That means you just found somebody to go along on the ride with you. I used this analogy before. If I'm driving to the store and I'm going to the store and someone says, hey, will you take me to the store? I said, yeah, hop in the car. I'm going to the store anyway. You can ride with me. Sure, I gave that person a gift, but it didn't cost me anything because I was going anyway. But let's say I'm sitting home on my couch doing nothing, sipping on some coffee or a tea with my feet up, with my pajamas on, and someone says, hey, I need to go to the store. Will you take me? And now I've got to get up and go to the store and do it, and I don't really want to go. Now I'm giving. That's the difference. I'm not believing that Myrla is a giver when she has to bend, because when we were on the show, she didn't bend a lot at all. Not at all. Myrla said she has like 78 followers on her IG or something. She said the majority of them are women, because the majority of women, we watch the show Married at First Sight, so I could see that. The majority of my audience were women. But if she wants to start appealing to men and finding out why male customers are not coming in her store, purchasing, buying, and putting in an offer, she needs to start listening to them. She needs to start listening to her words and how they come off to men and not how they come off to women. I'm trying here to help her. I'm not here to put her down, because she is stuck. She's stuck. She can't find the love of her life. She's not inviting that man in her life, and she can't keep doing the same things, and she can't keep saying the reason why she can't find them is because she's an introvert and she doesn't go out enough, and she doesn't put as much effort into finding a man as she does her career. She's a smart woman. She's a smart woman. My question has become then, if she's so smart, which I do believe she is, why hasn't she figured out that she needs to do something different? And it doesn't just mean going out. Why hasn't she found out that she needs to change some things about herself? You know why? Because she's stubborn and she doesn't want to bend. She actually doesn't want to change the things about herself that would actually usher that man in. What she wants to be able to do is to continue to be the same person, but find a man who will accept her the way she is. I've told you, that saying, accept me for who I am, is one of the worst sayings people can use out in dating. It is one of the worst sayings. Should you bend so much that you become a completely different person? No, not absolutely. But you should absolutely listen to your customers who are men, who are telling you, and they're obviously, let me tell you, actions speak louder than words. She says men don't approach her, which means she doesn't have an inviting disposition on her. She's a beautiful woman, but she doesn't have an inviting disposition. So even if she's kind and caring on the inside, it doesn't ooze out of her. People don't pick up on that when they see her. She needs to look at these things. Her answers in dating, her answers when Kendra G is interviewing her for prospective men to see her on this show, to date her, were horrible. She spent her opportunity on national TV talking about her ex. If anybody would tell you dating 101, if you're a divorced woman and you start to go on a date, the worst thing you can do is talk bad about your ex and take zero accountability. What accountability did Myrla take on this show of Kendra? What did she say she could have done differently? It was all about how he wasn't anything she wanted. He was broke, didn't have any money. He was a liar. He was this, he was that. Ain't no man going out with that. You tell that story sent across from a man on a date, and you don't get a second date. Absolutely not. No, you don't. You don't get one. I read a couple of the comments. I saw Myrla down in the comments clapping back at people, talking about, you don't know me, this and that. Myrla, don't come down in my comments. Please, if you listen to this, please do not come down in my comments talking about me, because I am quite clear I don't know you. I am quite clear I don't know anything about you. All I can go off of are my first impressions, what comes out of your mouth. That's it. I don't know anything else. And my opinion is based on what came out of your mouth, what I saw on the screen, and my first impression. It is the same thing a man will judge you in dating because he won't know you either. He won't know your insides. And so if you can't pass the first sniff test, which is what I'm talking about, first impressions, if you can't pass first impressions, you won't get to second dates and third dates. Like I said, it's like an interview process. It's like an interview process. Y'all know I went back to picking up more money in the engineering world. Many of you who follow me know that I was a corporate engineer for many years. Then I left corporate America. I started working as an entrepreneur, working in mainly real estate, investing. I did some house building. I did lots of things. I did flips. I did lots of things in real estate for 15 years. I used my engineering background to help me in that field. So it was an overlay of it. And then recently I told you the real estate market was trash. So I said, you know what, let me go back and start making some money back in engineering because engineering is paying real well right now. It's paying better than real estate. And I said, let me go where the money is good right now. So I went back into the engineering world. And do y'all know, I hadn't been back in that world for a long time. So I actually had to interview. I hadn't interviewed for, over 15 years, had to start interviewing. And I was astonished at the interview world. I was astonished how many interviews you have to go on now to get a date. To get a job. And I'm saying that because it feels like a dating when women talk about how hard dating is. I had to go through 7 interviews, you guys. I had to make it through 7 rounds of interviews to get the job I have now as an engineer. 7. I was astonished. When I left when I left the corporate world years ago, I think the most interviews I had ever even gone to maybe was 2 or 3. Now it's up to 7. This is what's happening in the dating world for women out here. What's happening in the dating world is now to make it to the level of being a wife or girl, even a girlfriend. The amount of interviewing you have to go through, right? And I'm gonna call it an interview because people are feeling each other out. Women are feeling the men out too. Okay, so I'm not saying it's one-sided. They're feeling them out too. But the amount that you have to go through just to get to levels when before 15 years ago you didn't have to go through it is astonishing. And so what I'm saying about Myrla is she's not making it past the first or second interview. I know it because her answers are horrible. I consider this little interview with Kendra G a first interview. That's what I consider it. If I'm a man in the audience and I'm watching Myrla on the screen and I'm saying, let me see if I'm going to drop down in this woman's DMs and shoot my shot, and this is her first interview, that man is not calling Myrla. Her interview questions were horrible. Now she can decide she don't want a job, she don't want to get better at interviewing. I could have decided that. When I had my first interview and I got turned down and didn't make it to round 2, I could have decided I didn't want that and I could have given up. But what I did was I said, wow, I need to hone my skills better in interviewing. I need to figure out how I make it from interview 1 to interview 2. And that's what I did. Each time I said, I just want to make it a little further, a little further, a little further. Did I know I was going to have to go all the way to round 7? Heck no. Heck no, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. But that's what dating is. And if you want to disregard what people think on first impressions of you, you won't make it to round 2 or round 3. Myrla needs more job offers. Job offers are the men. She needs more men coming to her. She needs more men that she can choose from. And she's not attracting them to her. And that even when they do come, they're not going to like her answers. Like I told Dom from this last season, she needs to come up with a new answer to being divorced. Myrla needs a new answer. She better come up with a new answer on why she got divorced. And it needs not to include that Gil was broke. He was a dusty, as people say out here. He didn't have his shit together. He didn't have any savings. She needs to give that up. She better come up with another answer that talks more about what she learned. Because that's the other thing. People want to know what you learned. When you're interviewing for a job, one of the common things they ask you is, why did you leave your job? Do you think they want to hear that you left your job because your boss was crap, your job was a crap? No. They want to hear what you learned. People understand when things aren't good fits. People understand you leave jobs, it wasn't a good fit. But they don't want to hear you bashing your ex-employer, bashing your ex-boss. Ain't nobody gonna hire you with that. And that's what Myrla did on this first interview. She bashed her ex-employer, which was Gil. Why would anybody want to hire her? She had a shot on Kendra G. Kendra G got a large audience. I don't know if it's mainly female or male. I don't know her demographics. But whatever it is, if there was a man watching it who might have been a good fit for Myrla, he was turned all the way off. All the way off because her answers were horrible. Horrible. I know a lot of times you guys tell me I'm hard on women, but really, if you think about what I'm doing, the reason why I may be hard on women is because I want women to win. I'm not here. I don't do these YouTube videos just because I want to be on camera. I love these shows. I love watching it, but I also want to see women get what they want. And when I see women stuck, like Myrla's stuck. She was stuck before Married at First Sight. She's still stuck now. Because when I listened to her responses, they didn't sound any different than they did 2 years ago. 2 years ago. She's still stuck on Gil and what he does and what he wasn't and what he didn't do, as opposed to focusing on her answers and what she should be doing differently. And I don't want to hear any more about, I just need to get out more. No, that's not the answer. That's a real good, easy answer she's come up with, was because I'm introverted and I don't go out more. Lots of introverted people get married. You think the only people married are extroverted? It may add a layer of a complexity to it, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Get off that. Get off that excuse, because then it makes you, then you cling on to that excuse and then you don't want to look at anything else about yourself. No, that's not it. Anyway, that's it, y'all. That's all I'm going to talk about. Like I said, don't crucify me down in the comments, but I absolutely do want to hear your opinions. But let's not make it be about me. Let's not make it be about me. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Bye.